All right, it is 6:30. We're going to call to order the West Zoning Board meeting, uh, March 20th. Can we get a roll call, please?
Jeff Huff,
Here.
Craig Connell,
Present.
John McGran, sorry. Terry Atwell, absent. Donna Getzman,
Here.
Bob Paulson,
Here.
Roger Spears.
Present.
We have quorum.
Good. Thank you very much. This point, if we can get the statement for the hybrid in-person virtual meeting, please.
This meeting is now being recorded in the board hearing room with zoning board members attending in person. There's also an option for virtual attendance on Zoom webinar. For Zoom participants wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom app at the start of the agenda item on which you desire to comment. Comments will be received from in-person attendees first, followed by Zoom participants. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will recognize you by name or phone number used to join the Zoom webinar, and your microphone will be unmuted. Please state your name and city and state and where you reside for the record, followed by your comments. All public speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless the chair designates a different time period. If you're having trouble with Zoom, please call 913-715-9666. Board members, staff, and presenters, please state your name every time you begin talking, and please speak into the microphone so that people attending via Zoom can hear you and the comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting. We are presenting live and recording the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, let's go over agenda items. Is there anything that we need to add, delete, or revise, approve for the agenda? Looks like we're good. Disclosure of conflicts of interest on the board.
None.
None. All right. And disclosure of external contracts or discussions.
None.
None.
Does not appear to be any of those. All right. Can I get a motion for the approval of the amendments for February 21st meeting?
Bob Paulson, I move that we approve the minutes from last month.
A second?
Craig Connell, I second.
All approve, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes for our last meeting are approved. If we could hear the board reports.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman, board members, Sean Pendley, planning staff. So the only Board of County Commissioners actions to update are really just a status from the last zoning board meeting, your last zoning board meeting in February. If you recall, you recommended approval of a special permit application for the city of DeSoto for a sewer pump station at K10 and Edgerton Road. That case is being heard for final action by the Board of County Commissioners for tomorrow's meeting on March 21st. There was also the final development plan for phase 2 infrastructure improvements at New Century Commerce Center. That application will be scheduled for final action at BOCC on April 18th. Then for Planning Commission actions, there was no meeting in February since we had the training session, if you recall, the board member training session. But we do have our next Planning Commission meeting next Tuesday, March 26th at 5:45 p.m. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Sean. Okay, at this point, we will look at the business before the board. Our one item of business this evening is application number W24-374-PP and W24-375-FPMC, a preliminary and final plat, Lewis Allen Dean Development. At this time, if we could hear from our board or staff.
Good evening, Michelle Leininger, County Planning staff. These applications are for a preliminary and final plat for Lewis Allen Development. This map shows the subject property outlined in blue. It's at the southeast corner of 151st Street and Edgerton Road. Here's an aerial of the property. The property is currently unplatted. and contains approximately 81 acres, and it is zoned for rural RUR rural district. Again, the aerial shows the land use in the area. It's a mix of mostly agriculture and single family homes are sprinkled in. This entire area is zoned RUR rural. Here's the final plat for the development. It is an 8-lot residential plat. All of the lots meet the plat requirements for a nominal 10-acre. Nominal is the area of the lot plus half of the right of way at the width of the lot. So you get to add in a little bit of that right of way for the 10-acre lots. This plat meets all the minimum infrastructure requirements, minimum subdivision standards, and all of the requirements for the RUR district. It does meet the minimum lot width to have individual driveways for each of the lots. Lots 1 through 6 will have access off of 151st Street, and then 7 and 8 will have access off of Edgerton Road. You do see some hatched area around the corner, and then in the area of the stream buffer, these are areas of no access, so the driveways cannot be located in those areas. Staff does recommend approval of the preliminary and final plat for an 8-lot residential subdivision to be known as Lewis Allen Development, subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report. And there's a suggested motion, and I can answer any questions if you have any.
Do we have any questions from the board to staff?
Donna Getzman. Michelle, I just had one question for clarification. Since the lots nominally are 10 acres or just a little bit over, then does that for our accessory building down, if there was an accessory building down the road, that takes the nominal lot size. So all those would be 10 acres. It would not be restricted then for accessory buildings. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. When we do the 10 acres, it's a nominal 10 for
Okay.
those requirements.
Thank you.
Give you guys a minute to look over. Is there anything else that we need to ask? All right. Thank you. Okay, at this time, is there an applicant presentation? That side. And if you could just state your name, information, and then we'll have a no more than 10-minute presentation if possible.
It's not going to be very long. It's pretty simple, really.
Okay.
My name is Matthew Serrano. And I live in Olathe. I'm really just trying to give an opportunity for people to own a piece of property, 10 acres. It's something that I've always myself had desire to own property, and I just feel like not a whole lot of people that can own 80 acres and just buy for the amount of money that it would cost. And so I'm trying to bring down the costs so that other people can, everyone can, it's more affordable, I guess is what I'm trying to say, so that it's more affordable for people to develop and live on acreage instead of living in a tight subdivision. I mean, like I know I didn't, this is basically the same size. I don't know if you can see it from here or not, but this is the exact same size outlined in red off of the GSI report. And I outlined it here, and in that 80 acres, it says that there's 247 dwellings, and really all I'm asking for is 8. So, I mean, it's not very intrusive to the area. And so that's just, that's really all I have. Any questions or?
Any questions from the board? Does not appear to be any questions. Thank you. At this time, we can open up to the public comments. We do have some people that signed in. I'm not sure if you wanted to make public comments, but I'm going to go down my list. And then if there's anybody else beyond the list that wants to make a statement, we can definitely let you do that. If you do want to make a statement, last name of Maxwell, if you want to, we have a 3-minute. If you want to come up and speak, you can. If you don't mind, I'm sorry. They make me follow the rules.
I live on 151st and I'm wondering what's going to happen to 151st. Will it be paved? Because most people that come out from town aren't going to want to drive on a gravel road to get out of their driveway. And we're all used to the dust and dirt, and I don't want my taxes to go up. Don't particularly want a paved road. So that's my only concern.
Mr. Chairman, staff could try to answer some of these questions at the end or at the applicant, but we would ask if the public, if you could give your name for the record so that we know who. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sharon Max.
I'm Sharon Maxwell.
Thank you.
38410 West 151st.
Perfect. Thank you. McCollum, Rob, or Sharman? Again, state your name, address, and then let us know what you'd like to say.
Robin Sharman McCollum at 151st and Edgerton Road. We become regulars here in this building. I never knew much about county government until 2020. We all know what happened that year. And I've lived in the country with Rob for about 5 years, and it's been a really nice thing to look out your front window at night and see a beautiful sunset and know that now there's going to be a ton of buildings, a ton of outbuildings, who knows what out there. It's kind of like for the past nearly 3 years, we've been assaulted out there. I mean, Rob has told me about how when he first moved out there, it was like nobody cared about it. Now everybody wants to carve it up. First, it was a solar farm. We've had a possible highway being talked about. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dump trucks up and down our road. Thankfully, that seems to have stopped. And when I was looking at the last page and I saw number 7 here, it has to be a joke. It says if the grading or other land disturbing activities disturb more than 1 acre of land, a land disturbance permit shall be obtained. And yet we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dump trucks that did not have a permit until December. So that's really funny. But anyway, now we have a subdivision coming in across the road, and I understand if somebody wants to sell the property, I just wish it wasn't so many. Maybe 4 would be acceptable. You'll probably be tearing up our yard to get to the water line. I find it interesting that someone from Olathe wants to tell us what's going to happen out in our neighborhood. I'm not going up to his neighborhood and carving it up. And it's just upsetting and disturbing. Thank you for listening.
My name is Robert McCollum, same on Edgerton Road there. How deep is the 6, 7, and 8 lots? And are they going to be warned about a thoroughfare being cut out of there? Because the carnap thing that I understand is going to come within probably 1 foot of our front door. Now, they have to have a 330-foot driveway. The front of my house is about 80 feet off of the center of the road. So is our house going to still exist? This Carnap thing is a joke. It was all, I was permitted and I was okay to pay taxes all these years out there. And then they come up with this mess and there was no discussion on it. It was just thrown at us. And I don't like any of this going on. That thing needs to be taken around County Line Road or something instead of Edgerton Road. I do not understand why Edgerton Road has to be made into a thoroughfare. They're talking about a divided 4-lane highway. And you aren't going to have but 5 acres on each of these lots if they take that much off their frontage. Yeah, I own to the center of the road, or later on own to the center of the median, but I can't use it. And it looks like most of these aren't even going to be 10 acres, which your county law says they have to be, except if you make an exception.
Thank you. Next person on the list, last name of Pittman. You're good? Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? We definitely want to hear from you. Yeah, if you come up, just give your first and last name and address.
Jeff Sailors, we live at 39410 West 151st Street. We live at the end of the road. The question that I have is kind of, I think, the same thing along Sharon's line, was what's going to happen to the existing Rock Road there with adding that much more traffic? Are we going to do some improvements on that road? Do you know? Is that in the plan or in the long range plan? What's that look like?
Okay. And after this part of it, we will write those down and then we'll ask staff and we'll go through, we'll definitely get you an answer. But I don't have that answer right now, but we will definitely get that for you.
Okay.
If there's any other questions you have while you're up here, definitely.
Just pretty much that, or we have a dust control program out there. And I think the folks out there that have been involved in the dust control program, that's fine. We live on a dirt road. We understand that. And we live with that. But the dust control, it would be a huge add if we did at least something to that road to keep the dust down and kind of make the road a little more solid, because you're going to have another 20 cars a day up and down that road. And that's quite a bit of extra traffic on that road. So I'd like to at least explore what we're going to do to address that.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate
All right.
your concern.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Is there anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Again, first name, last name, and address.
Robin Lathram. I live at 15285 Edgerton Road in Gardner. I'm not familiar with this Carnet thing, so I would like any of you who can enlighten us and maybe give us some information on that to explain that. Because that's kind of a big deal. Widening a road, 2 more lanes. It's going to make lots of problems. Anyway, I'd like to know more about that if you can explain it.
All right.
Yeah, my name is Terry Golds. I live at 14500 Evening Star. My address is Eudora, but I'm within a mile of this staff approved, privileged exemption that you all say is okay. But when I came to your staff just a few years ago, I own over 10 acres. And you told me, no, we won't divide your land. What right do you have to take somebody from Olathe and you won't divide mine? What right is that? I said, I want to be able to I have 2 grandchildren, and I want to take that land, put it in trust for my grandchildren. Y'all said, no, go back to your township, fight your way back here. That's what you told me. Because he's got enough money to buy 80, and I only had enough money to buy a little over 13. What makes that right? As far as these roads, they're terrible. You know, and then you want to say, oh, well, you know, it's okay for 20 more cars to come down, and they're going to cut across and come down Evening Star too. What are you going to do for my road? I pay for dust control every year. Who's going to pay for that? Y'all going to pay for that? My tax is going to go up if you pave it. If you do decide to pave it, how are you going to pave something that goes into flood, folks? It floods down there from my house, 200 foot away. When we got 6 inches of rain here a couple years ago, you couldn't see all the way to 143rd Street. You needed a boat. And I mean, you could have put one with a big motor on it. You didn't need oars. You weren't going to touch. Nowhere. It's that deep. So how are you going to take care of this? All these people. I don't approve this. I'm telling you right now, I don't approve what your exemption for these folks because they can afford 80 acres. It ain't right what you're doing. How can you say yes and then say no? That's all I got.
Thank you. All right, sir.
Didn't have a comment, but did have a question. Questions. Dustin Pittman, I'm at 151st and Evening Star. I'd like to lobby Jeff's comment to get improvements on 151st Street. It's terribly dusty and it's going to make it even worse. That would be a primary concern. And then a secondary question is, how wide are the lots? I think it's maybe 1 through 5. And my understanding was there's a minimum width of the lots, so I'd like to understand that a little bit better. 300, 330. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sean, if we've already spoke, is that
It's your prerogative generally, you know, one time you speak.
you had time left, so we will give you another minute if you can. Would that give you plenty of time? Yeah. We want to hear. This helps us.
Okay, Robin Latham again, 15285 Edgerton Road. Excuse me. That brought up a question of the side, the lot width. I remember just about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, a property between me and the McCollums was sold, and they were required to have a minimum of 10. And so they had to actually absorb some of the property behind my property, which is just a 2-acre plot, and it's grandfathered, I think, in probably. So I remember calling the county and asking them what the width to depth ratio was, and they said it had to be a 4-to-1 ratio. It had to be, how's that, wider, you know, longer than
yes.
what, but it couldn't be more than that as far as the width and the depth. So I'm curious to see if these plots here fall into that. And another question, again, with the property being sold right next to me, just to the north of me, if they were required to have that, why would these other folks not be required to have that? Those are my questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Anybody else? Okay, we got one more. We got one more, Sean.
Carolyn Forey. I live on Edgerton Road, 15335. So we're right across the street. So my question is about fire hydrants. I guess the furthest fire hydrant is quite a ways down. 151st, 100 what? Dilly Road and 151st. And then there's another one. Where's the other one at?
I'm sorry. I'm having trouble. Can you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
There's no fire hydrants really close. So I guess the question is what they're going to do on that in the water aspect for that fire hydrants.
Okay, perfect. We're going to answer all the questions. Is there anybody else at this time that have any questions or comments? I just want to say personally, thank you. This is what this is about. So thank you for sharing. All right, staff, if you could address the concerns that we've had to this point.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Penley, planning staff. I'll try to start answering some of the questions I have, and I'll ask Michelle to answer some of the specific questions regarding the plat. There were several comments and questions regarding CARNIP, and our CARNIP plan is the Comprehensive Arterial Road Network Plan. There are no plans at this time specifically to update CARNIP. There has been a discussion about that. The Public Works staff has been initially looking at that. So CARNIP at this time, our CARNIP plan, we do not have any specific proposed updates. It is something that the Public Works Department has talked about updating. I know that there's also been a discussion about future improvements to roads. There are no plans for improvements to any of the roads in this area at this time. If anything happens, that would be something that we would update as part of our rural comprehensive plan. That would go before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners for approval. So no plan at this time for update CARNIP. It will need to be updated at some point, but that's not a plan at this time. For questions regarding the improvements of 151st Street or Edgerton Road, no plans again for improvements of these roads. 151st in this section of this frontage of this property is gravel road. That is allowed to remain as is, even with the proposed subdivision. This proposed subdivision does meet all of the requirements for the RUR rural district. There are no requirements to improve that section of road. Just as it was indicated before, there might be concerns if possibly paving it, and that would be something that would be determined by the Public Works Department when it's necessary. So if there's a time when that becomes necessary to improve the road, that would be done as part of a project for Public Works. That's not a requirement of this development for 10-acre lots. Again, in question why the lot requirements and why would they be allowed to subdivide? The reason this is it meets our requirements is because the minimum lot area requirements in the RUR district is 10 acres. And as Michelle pointed out in the presentation, a nominal 10 acres includes that right-of-way fronting the lots. So with the right-of-way fronting the lots, they do meet the nominal 10 acres. So they meet all of the requirements of our zoning and subdivision regulations. There are no plat exceptions or waivers as part of this application. They meet all of the requirements. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of that. I think there was another question about dust control. That is certainly another thing that the Public Works Department can address. I think one of the gentlemen who spoke indicated that there was a dust control program, and there may be some of the property owners that participate in that. It's not a mandatory requirement. I believe it's optional, and any property owner can participate in that. The more property owners you have in a given area, the lower the cost would be, from what I understand. But that's something that the Public Works Department administers. So if you get a number of property owners that agree to participate in the dust control program, they will treat those roads annually as needed. So that, those are the best I can answer the questions at this time. I'll turn it over to Michelle to answer some of the specific questions on the plat and any other questions. Thanks.
Michelle Leiniger. Just to answer some of the details of the plat questions, all the lots that front 151st Street are between 1,284 feet deep to 1,285 feet deep. Every single lot is at least 330 square feet, or has at least 330 feet of road frontage. The minimum lot frontage for a lot in the RUR district is actually 300. In order to get individual lot driveways, you have to have at least 330 feet of frontage. That's why you typically will see lots with 330 so that each lot can have their own driveway. We do see some that are smaller than the 330, and you will see shared driveways and shared driveway easements along the property lines. All of these lots meet or exceed that minimum frontage for a individual driveway. So they meet the lot width. They also meet the lot depth to width ratios that's required. So there are no exemptions or waivers that were requested as part of this plat. They meet the standards as outlined in the codes. As far as hydrants, the RUR district in the minimum 10 acres is not required to have a public water source. Some of our areas don't, and they rely on wells. There does happen to be a water line on the north side of 151st Street and one on the east side of Edgerton Road. Those are sized enough for domestic water. They're not sized enough for hydrant fire flow. That is not a requirement of the zoning and subdivision regulations. That is a requirement in the building code, and there are ways that, or what they call is basically exceptions that, if you don't have the fire flow supply, you have greater setbacks on the side lot lines so that the structures are further apart. Again, that's not a requirement of the plat. That would be a requirement at the time of development. So no improvements to the roads are required. No improvements to the water infrastructure is required. I think we hit everything, but let us know if we missed something.
All right. So let's see, from the board, any questions for staff, applicant, or public participants?
I have a comment to the lady that was concerned that she couldn't divide her 13 acres. The minimum requirements now is 10. That's why you can't divide 13 into two pieces, basically.
I have one question for Michelle. On your recommendations, could you address the wording of number 2 on the top of page 7?
Yes, Michelle Einiger. That's something. So our building code person was out of the country for a couple of weeks. And so without him responding to some requests, that was put in there as a caveat. But if they're not extending the water lines and not putting in fire hydrants, that would be a moot point. That could actually be removed.
Okay.
So it was put in there as a placeholder. It's a box that can come across checked already, or you could just leave it and we'll check it later.
Okay, Roger Spears, just for clarification, the wording of the comment that I asked about says that the developer shall provide a water line plan, including fire hydrant placement, to the county building code official. But Michelle has clarified that it was a placeholder and is not a requirement. Correct?
Yeah, it doesn't end up needing to, they won't have anything to submit because they won't be doing any of that. So yes, it's not required. You can remove it if.
Any other questions? Good. Good.
I guess based on Roger Spears, I'm sorry, based on Michelle's clarification, I would make a motion that we remove that comment from the recommendations so that it's no confusion as we move down the road.
Bob Paulson will second removing that item 2.
We can take a vote.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, Sean Penley, planning staff, Mr. Spears, was the motion to recommend approval with the removal of stipulation 2. Is that your motion?
But we haven't gotten to the
Okay.
approval yet.
Yeah, so yeah, we want to make sure we have a motion for approval, and then we can make amendments.
Then we will do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then just a point of clarification for myself. This is Jeff Huff. This is for plating and not for development. So this allows the plating to move forward, but for development, there would have to be additional presentation to the zoning committee or no?
Sean Penley, planning staff, no, this preliminary and final plat would allow for the subdivision of the land as proposed with the plat, which basically for residential purposes, that's the only thing that needs to be considered by the zoning board and BOCC. The next step would be just building permits as each individual lot owner is ready to build. So this preliminary and final plat would be the only applications that would be before the zoning board and BOCC.
And this is Michelle Leiner. I'll tack on to that. What would be permitted to be here is single family residence and agricultural uses and structures and accessory buildings. Anything else, those 3 things would go to the building permit process. Anything else would come back before the zoning board. For example, a CUP.
Jeff Huff again. I need clarification, I guess, on with some of the roads and some of the flooding issues that have been presented. Is Public Works, I mean, are we aware of that, or is that something we haven't heard before? Help me understand what that looks like.
Sean Penley, planning staff. Public Works has not indicated that there is any concern with the condition of 151st Street or Edgerton Road. So if there is flooding, that is something that has not been identified by Public Works staff as needing to be addressed, and certainly not with this plat. If it is determined in the future that any improvements would be required, that would be done as an at-large project. That would be something separate for the county, not a requirement of this plat. So in other words, for the purposes of this request for a subdivision of 8 lots in this area, there are no required infrastructure improvements for the roads.
Give me a second. Okay. Any questions? Okay. At this point, we can close the public comments. And so we'll bring those to a close. Again, I do appreciate you sharing with us your concerns. Among us, the zoning board, is there anything that we need to discuss any further in regards to this application? Now, is this Roger would make his motion at this point? Okay.
That would be appropriate, yes.
Roger Spears, I move to approve the preliminary plat and final plat for residential subdivision with 8 lots to be known as Lewis Allen Development for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by staff and listed in the staff report with the exception that item 2 regarding the water line plan will be struck.
John DeGrand, I'll second.
We could take a vote. Aye.
Craig Connell,
Aye.
John DeGrand,
Aye.
Donna Getzman,
Aye.
Bob Paulson,
Aye.
Roger Spears.
Aye.
Thank you. Announcement of the Board of County Commissioners meetings, date and location.
Yes, this is Michelle Leiniger. This item will go to the Board of County Commissioners at their April 18th meeting, which is held here in this room at 111 South Cherry Street in Olathe at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Is there any other business that needs to be brought before the board? None at this time. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Donna Getzman, I move to adjourn.
A second?
Bob Paulson, I second.
All approved of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The meeting is adjourned.